Let's get into it. Caught again. Joe Rogan did not let Bernie Sanders get away with this. Or at the very least, I'm not going to let him get away with this. Now, what Bernie Sanders does in this clip is he is calling out Trump and Elon Musk, but Trump for his treatment of Thomas Massie. Elon Musk for another reason. But it's like Bernie's completely ignoring, has to be ignoring, how Democrats treat Democrats who decide to push against the Democrat narrative. The left eats its own. It's a term we've all heard time and time again. Let's get into this real quick. Bernie Sanders right here having a great time, but we're going to have to put a stop to that. I'm just saying, okay? He really does look like. Let's jump into the Rogan clip right now, and then we'll get into what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let me talk about what it means.
Okay.
As a result of the Citizens United Supreme Court decision, I think it's 15, 16 years old, what it says is you're a billionaire. You have now the constitutional right, because your money is your freedom of expression, right? So you don't like Bernie Sanders, you can put millions or hundreds of millions of dollars into a campaign and express your view about how terrible Bernie Sanders is,
right,
and you can buy that election, right? That's your constitutional right. I think that's probably the worst decision that the Supreme Court has ever made. So what is the result of that decision? The result of that decision, let's take us to where we are today, is that Elon Musk, and I know Elon was on your show, and he's here in Austin, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And we could talk about Elon, but he spent $270 million to elect Trump as president. Okay. I think that's absurd that any one person...
What's the most someone donated towards the Harris campaign?
They spent a lot of money on Harris as well.
They spent $1.5 billion just
combined
over the course of a couple of months.
You got it. All right, let me talk about it. So
yeah,
I'm not here just to say it's a Republican. That's my point here.
Right.
Okay. So Musk spends that money, and what's his reward? He becomes the most powerful person in government for 3 or 4 months. Okay, fine.
I don't know how Joe just lets him get away with saying he becomes the most powerful person in the government 3 or 4 months. How ridiculous is that? But Joe did push back on the fact that Kamala Harris raised $1.5 billion, ended up somehow still owing $20 million. I mean, she was just, I mean, maybe she was black because she was spending it. She was going hard. I mean, to have Beyonce come out and just speak and not even perform, that's very black behavior. So she might actually be black. But when it comes to Elon Musk being the most powerful person in government, Bernie is completely ignoring the reason why Elon Musk decided to support Donald Trump. This, as well as another reason, many reasons, are the reason Elon Musk knew he had to support Donald Trump. It wasn't to become the most powerful person in the government.
That is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
Okay, right away.
Yeah.
There's no way to misconstrue that.
What does that mean?
Oversight and regulation for free speech is ridiculous.
Yeah, totally.
Just that alone, there's no way to misconstrue that, right? What she was saying is what I was thinking she was saying. She was saying she wants government oversight and regulation for social media. That's crazy.
She was not just talking about social media. She was talking about all social media, but she was directly talking about X. Elon Musk bought X so people could speak more freely. I know it still has its hiccups, but more freely. And also, Elon Musk made it very clear that this is why he decided to endorse Donald Trump as well.
There was tragically an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. After this, you tweeted that you endorse him. What's your philosophy behind that endorsement? What do you hope Donald Trump does for the future of this country and for the future of humanity?
Well, I think there's, people tend to take, like, say, an endorsement as, well, I agree with everything that person has ever done their entire life 100% wholeheartedly. And that's not going to be true of anyone. but we have to pick. We got two choices really for who's president, and it's not just who's president, but the entire administrative structure changes over. And I thought Trump displayed courage under fire, objectively. He's just got shot. He's got blood streaming down his face, and he's like fist pumping, saying "fight." That's impressive. Like, you can't feign bravery in a situation like that. Like, most people would be ducking. There would not be, because it could be a second shooter. You don't know. The president of the United States got to represent the country, and they're representing you. They're representing everyone in America. Well, like, you want someone who is strong and courageous to represent the country.
100%. So there was reasons behind it that Bernie Sanders is just not willing to touch on, acting as though he just wanted to be the most powerful person in the government. His position was, Donald Trump looks at him and says, "Go find this and bring it back to me." And he said, "Yes, sir," and would bring it back to him. How is that? It's powerful. Working alongside the president in any respect is very powerful, but to act like as if he was just taking over the government, President Musk, as him and Elizabeth Warren have been saying, absolutely.
But what you have right now, and I just saw this the other day, you are a Republican member of Congress, okay? And you say, there's a reconciliation bill, which we can talk about in a minute, that this is Trump's big, beautiful bill that's coming up literally on the floor of the Senate very shortly. So let's say you're a Republican representing a low-income district. And you say, I got a lot of people on Medicaid in my district, and kids can't get to college, and I worry about food programs. I don't think it's a good idea to give tax breaks to billionaires and cut back on Medicaid. You make that announcement today. What happens to you?
It's over. You're attacked.
You finished.
The swarm comes for you.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's not a swarm. It's
the problem is it's already been established, right? That these laws have been established. The power has been given to these people. The money has started flowing, and it's been flowing for a long time now. And this is the issue with starting something that you can't stop.
Well, you can't stop it.
You can stop.
And you got to stop it.
Okay, but if you do stop it, all these people are going to throw all their money at stopping you from stopping, correct? Right?
Exactly.
They're going to come up with the best commercials with American flags. This country's all about competition and freedom.
You got it.
The freedom to donate to the party of your choice.
You got it.
Yeah.
Good.
Stop these communists.
Stop. You're writing their ads for them. They're going to pick it up. With the American,
I could write them.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
really.
could all write. But then we got to take a deep breath and figure out, where do we go from there. Now, I wanted to, in my part, as you know, I am the longest serving independent in American history.
Yes.
I caucus with the Democrats, I always have, but you can't hear me defending the Democratic Party on this issue, because you're right. During the election, it wasn't just Musk and Republicans putting a lot of money into Trump. It was Democratic billionaires putting a lot of money into Kamala and into other candidates as well. And I mentioned there's a guy named, I don't even know his first name, Mr. Massie. Is that name ring a bell?
Thomas Massie.
Thomas from Kentucky.
Yeah.
And this guy, as I am, is opposed to this war in Iran. Just yesterday, Trump gave a long post about how they're going to primary this guy. And what bothers me is, you would hope that there would be respect enough for members of Congress that you can vote your own conscience. You could, represent your constituency. Every district is different in America. But right now, anybody stands up and say, well, I disagree with President Trump. Bam, you are finished. We're going to primary you. We got all kinds of money. You're out of there. That happens.
It's very funny saying this. Now, I will say this about what Bernie Sanders is saying. 100% right. Is what Trump actually did say. Trump made sure to go in on Thomas Massie. He did not like Thomas Massie and how he's approaching things. He said, "Thank you to the House Freedom Caucus for delivering a big blow to the radical left Democrats, their desire to raise taxes and shut down our country." This is when the government shutdown was afoot. They hate America and all it stands for. Where does he get to Tom? Congressman Thomas Massie of beautiful Kentucky is an automatic no vote on just about everything, despite the fact that he has always voted for continuing resolutions. In the past, he should be primaried. I will lead the charge against him. Another grandstander, too much trouble, not worth the fight. He reminds me of Liz Cheney. That is shots fired in politics. That is a big shot fired in politics to say that you remind someone of Liz Cheney. And before her historic record-breaking fall, the people of Kentucky won't stand for it. So Donald Trump has made it very clear that he does want to primary Thomas Massie. And, you know, he made it clear again recently in regards to the war. You know, he made this post just about Massie. Congressman Massie of Kentucky is not MAGA, and he likes to say that, even though he likes to say that he is, actually, MAGA doesn't want him, doesn't know him, doesn't respect him. That's such a Trump say. They don't want him, he doesn't know him, and they don't respect him. He is a negative force who almost always votes no. What kind of guy is this? No matter how good something may be, and I make things look very, very good, okay? These are amazing things, beautiful things. He's simple-minded. He's a grandstander who thinks it's good politics to let Iran have the highest nuclear weapon. You hear that N-word? Nuclear weapon, while at the same time yelling death to America. You believe these people? You know? We should just put a turban or whatever they wear on Thomas Massie. Let him chant along with them. Someone teach Thomas Massie Farsi, okay? At every chance they get. So basically, he's just going in on Thomas Massie. Just, again, just stating that he primary him and he doesn't like the way that he's moving and things of that nature. Valid for Bernie Sanders to say that. But let's not forget what was done to RFK while he was running for president as a Democrat.
Spent his whole career plagiarizing the Kennedys, now wants a Kennedy silenced. RFK Jr. is saying the DNC has just fixed the primary to make it impossible for him to win.
They've made rules that if anybody campaigns in Iowa or sets foot, any candidate sets foot in the state of Iowa or sets foot in the state of New Hampshire, that none of the votes that are cast for that candidate will be tallied. In other words, any delegate that I win in New Hampshire or Iowa would go instead to the president. And now they're trying to change it so that if I campaign in New Hampshire, that none of the votes cast for me in Georgia will count. I would have to win almost 80% of all of the states in order to beat President Biden, even if he only wins 20%.
Democrats love democracy, except you can't vote in Iowa or New Hampshire. RFK Jr. can shake hands, kiss babies, and hold town halls for 6 months and walk away from New Hampshire and Iowa with zilch, not a single delegate. The DNC is giving RFK the Bernie treatment. Remember? Handpicked superdelegates, put Bernie in his place the second he became a threat to Hillary. The DNC designed the system to deny insurgents a shot, and RFK needs to swallow the sleaze or the party is going to bankrupt them.
There's some really wild things that they're now considering, including forcing me to actually pay for the primaries. And their logic is that they don't need a primary because they already have a candidate.
The Democrat Party
don't need a primary because they already have a candidate. How about that? The price of running against sharp as a tack Joe Biden. And also Bernie Sanders himself, knowing what RFK has been going through, having gone through something very similar. And everybody knows what's coming right now. If you see Bernie pointing at these onesies. But he decides to do this to RFK when RFK is just trying to make America healthy again. You think that would be something everybody?
They are selling what's called onesies. These are little things, clothing for babies. One of them is titled Next one is no vax. Now you're coming before this committee and you say you are pro-vaccine. Just want to ask some questions. And yet your organization is making money selling a child's product to parents for $26, which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines. Can you tell us now that you will, now that you are pro-vaccine, that you certainly have power. You could make that call. Are you supportive of this?
I've had nothing to do with.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
I'm supportive of vaccines.
Are you supportive of?
Are you supportive of these onesies?
Of this clothing, which is military.
Even RFK had to laugh. He's like, what is going on? Absolutely ridiculous. But again, this has happened too many times. I have another example. But let's move on with the clip. I'll show you guys that after. Because it's absolutely ridiculous. But Bernie Sanders is willing to acknowledge, and what he's just so apparent. And it's not like he's Biden and he doesn't know. He knows exactly what. He's with it. He is. Say what you want. The guy's almost 90 years old and he's still functioning pretty well.
I should be allowed to have his own opinions and make some reasonable points, and that people are going to reject this idea.
Maybe.
And that it's not as simple as, I think the whole MAGA thing right now is very divided, particularly because one of the things that they voted for was no war. Well, now it seems like we're in a war, right? And it's quick. We're 6 months in, and that's already popped off. And then people are very concerned with now what happens to our troops overseas that are in these bases, that are in vulnerable positions, and what happens with, there's supposedly documented terror cells that got in through the open border over the last 4 years. So what happens now in America? What happens on American soil?
Sure. No, I agree with those.
When a guy like Thomas Massie steps up and says something, he's going to have a lot more support as well.
The answer is yes. And my only point is he has a right.
Yes.
Somebody else says, hey, I think the war is a great idea. Fine, that's your view. You got to go back. But what bothers me is that if anybody stands up, the next day, we're going to primary. You're out of here, man. And that's the Republicans. Let me talk about the Democrats for a moment, okay? I don't even know your views on this, so you may disagree with me. Israel was attacked by Hamas. Hamas is a terrible terrorist organization. They killed 1,200 people, which in a small country like Israel is a lot of people. Terrible, terrible attack. It's a war crime. Israel had a right, in my view, to defend itself. But the Netanyahu government did not have a right to kill 52,000 people in Gaza, wound well over 100,000. And right now, as we speak, Joe, children are starving to death because of Israel's blockades.
Yeah.
Starving to death. And I brought forth 2 resolutions, which basically were very simple, and said no more U.S. military aid to Israel under these conditions. One vote got 15 votes in the Senate, the other one got 16. Do you think that members of the Senate do not know what's going on in Gaza? The kids are starving to death. The innocent people are being shot down right and left. They know it. Why do you think I couldn't get more votes?
They wouldn't vote against Israel.
Right.
It's political suicide.
Now you're talking.
Right.
All right. So in the Republican side, you have moneyed interests saying you speak up against Trump, you're out of here. In the Democratic side, you speak up against the Netanyahu government, you're out of here as well. And they have been successful. You have super PACs like AIPAC spending a fortune. And they have already knocked off a number of members of Congress, good members of Congress, and they will do it again. So all I'm saying is you got a corrupt campaign finance system on both sides, which is rejecting the will of the American people and end up supporting powerful special interests. And if we do not get a handle on that issue, I worry very much about the future of American democracy.
Are you going to run for president again?
I am 83 years of age.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm not sure the American people will be too enthusiastic on somebody's 108.
You're still very with it.
Thank you.
You are.
Well,
you're a couple years older than Biden.
Yeah.
Right? Think of that.
Yeah.
You could be off a lot worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
He's true. It's true. It's exactly what I was saying. I will give him that. His mind works enough. His mind works so well that he knows how to bring up things that are a problem with Republicans, ignore it on the side of the Democrats, and then almost bring it to, where he's kind of criticizing the Democrats, but he's more focused on the issue of the Republicans. And so he's actually quite with it. He's very clever in how he does his whole thing. But again, I was not going to let him get away with saying these type of things. Absolutely. And, thankfully, when it came to RFK, he did end up hitting him with this sweet, sweet memory.
If we want to make America healthy, will you assure the American people that you will fight to do what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to every single American?
I'm going to make America healthier than other countries in the world right now.
Will you guarantee do what every other major country does? It's a simple question.
And by the way, Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
and
no,
protecting
no, no,
their interests.
Oh, I thought that would come. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
because I had
receiver of pharmaceutical money
from workers all over this country. Workers,
you were the
not a nickel from corporate PACs.
You were the single largest acceptor of pharmaceutical dollars.
No, from workers in
1.5 million.
Yeah, out of 200 million. All right, but.
Oh man, one of RFK's best moment. Just listen to me right now. The CEO is just a worker, okay? When he came to me with $500,000, the CEO of this pharmaceutical company came to me and said, "Here's $500,000. That's a worker. That's a worker." Okay, guess so. And let's not forget what they did to Tulsi Gabbard, the Democrats, talking about stepping outside the lines and what happens to.
An aide confirms that that's who she was talking about when she made this stunning claim that the Russians had already hit on a way to meddle in the 2020 election, much in the same way they meddled in her election in 2016. On a podcast interview, Clinton said, quote, "They're grooming her to be the third party candidate. She's the favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of sites and bots."
Whoa. Whoa. Okay. Well, message sent. My apologies. Let's move on. That was crazy. All right. Well, this is what Tulsi, this whole thing happened with Hillary and Tulsi. And then Tulsi talked about this happening to her just days after.
Started going out and just talking about and raising these issues on the campaign trail. But I remember one of the first interviews that I did on MSNBC, the host of the show saying, aren't you afraid of what the Clintons will do to you? Said this on live television. And
scary ass family.
Oh man.
You know, my answer was no, obviously, but it was amazing. It was interesting to see the reaction, like the days after, when I first went back to DC after I made that announcement of endorsement. And friends of mine, you know, politicians in Washington, they were like, "Man, Tulsi, like, go with God, sister."
It's a different animal.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. That's what happened. She stepped outside the lines a little bit, resigned from her position as co-chair of the DNC, supported Bernie Sanders, still got turned on by Bernie Sanders because she stepped out of the lines while Bernie Sanders was now coloring within the lines of the Democratic Party. So it's just a Democrat Party, sorry. And yeah, it's just it's funny to see Bernie Sanders trying to make these stretches about Trump being the main problem, and that's the thing to worry about. And even if we shifted outside of the left, or even before we do that, you know, Bernie Sanders was talking about like what happens if a Republican decides to, you know, stand against this bill or this or that. What happens to a Democrat if they all of a sudden say, you know what, we do need mass deportations? What happens to that person? I bet they go myth. They just end up at McDonald's somewhere just flipping burgers. They're like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. Someone knocked on my door. I woke up. I was just in McDonald's. I can't get into my government emails anymore. Just working my shift till it's done. That's all that would happen right away. Hopefully I can be on the fries by next Friday. That'd be it. Get out of here, man. Absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, again, even if we shifted to the left, just out of the politicians, if you just shifted to the left and what they do to people who end up stepping outside the lines of how they end up acting towards these, you know, if you're fat positive and you lose a bunch of weight, all of a sudden you're outcasted. You know, Like, if you're a vegan and you suddenly realize, like, I have a lot of deficiencies, I got to eat some meat, you're all of a sudden outcasted. You know, like, Joe, again, I brought it up before, Jojo Siwa. Jojo Siwa was like, I'm actually just a regular girl. And they're like, well, how dare you? Greta style, how dare you? Anyway, I got like 1 or 2 on the podcast, man. It was a ridiculous experience, quite honestly. I hope it doesn't happen again. I got to be real with you. I hope it does not happen again. I'm tired of seeing Bernie Sanders try to push things like this. Again, I hope Joe has a moment of reckoning like he did with Obama. I hope he does. He supported the guy. He's had a conversation with him. You know, the episode that I posted yesterday where they had that back and forth where Joe was calling him out about media integrity and everything. He left right after that. He goes, oh, okay, what else do you got for me? I got to catch a plane. He just left. You know, Joe has all the time in the world. So Joe didn't push him to leave. I think he literally was just like, I'm done. This is getting too tense. I'm messing up too much. I'm out of here. Crazy. Absolutely. Anyways, guys,